The Xantharian research station orbited the distant moon of Kepler, 442b, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the pale light of the binary stars. Commander Vextal adjusted his forearms around the control console, his scaled hide rippling with nervous energy. For 3 cycles, they had been studying the primitive species on the planet below, cataloging their behaviors and social structures. The species called themselves humans, and they had proven far more complex than initial scans suggested. Unlike the Xantharians, who reproduced through careful genetic planning and raised their young in communal nurseries, these creatures formed intense emotional bonds with their offspring. They called them children, and the devotion they showed was both fascinating and disturbing to observe. Security Chief Kroenke entered the observation deck, his massive frame casting shadows across the monitoring stations. The reptilian being's 6 eyes focused on the main view screen, where a human settlement sprawled across a verdant valley. Smoke rose from primitive cooking fires, and small figures moved between structures made of organic materials. Status report, Kroenke rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. The subjects continue their daily routines, Vextal replied, manipulating the controls with practiced precision. The adults engage in resource gathering, while the juveniles remain in designated areas. Their social organization appears more sophisticated than we initially calculated. On the screen, human children ran and played in an open area while their parents worked nearby fields. The Xantharians had been observing for weeks, noting how the humans never left their young unattended, how they constantly checked on them, how they would drop everything if a child called out in distress. Inefficient, Kroenke observed. Constant supervision wastes valuable work time. Our larvae manage perfectly well in the nursery chambers. Vextal tilted his elongated head. Perhaps, but their survival rate is remarkably high. Higher than our own, actually. Before Kroenke could respond, an alarm chimed softly. Junior technician Zilera approached. Her young features creased with confusion. As the newest member of the research team, she often asked questions that her superiors found elementary. "Commanders," she said, her voice uncertain, "we're detecting an unauthorized presence in Section 7. The bioscanners are picking up a human life sign, but that's impossible. Our shields prevent any atmospheric craft from approaching." Kroenke's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The view screen shifted to display the station's internal layout. A red dot pulsed in one of the maintenance corridors, moving slowly but steadily deeper into the ship. The readings showed a single human, adult female, but the energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. "How did it get aboard?" Vextal demanded. "Unknown," Zilera replied, her fingers dancing across her console. "There's no record of any hull breach or shuttle docking. It's as if she simply appeared." Kroenke straightened to his full height, his natural armor plates shifting. "Assemble a security team. We'll capture the intruder for study." But as they tracked the human's movement through the ship, something strange happened. The life sign began to slow, then stopped entirely in a section near the environmental processors. The area was warm and quiet, filled with the gentle hum of machinery that maintained the station's atmosphere. "She's not moving," Zilera reported. "Vital signs indicate she's entered a state of reduced activity. Rest, perhaps." Rest? Vextal's confusion was evident. In an alien environment? Under stress? Humans require regular periods of unconsciousness for biological maintenance, Zilera explained, consulting her research notes. "They call it sleep, but the timing seems illogical given her circumstances." Kroenke gathered his security team, a group of 6 heavily armed Xantharians equipped with stun weapons and capture nets. They moved through the ship's corridors with military precision, their clawed feet silent on the metal deck plates. The closer they got to the intruder's location, the more puzzled they became. There were no signs of forced entry, no damaged equipment, no evidence that anyone had passed this way. It was as if the human had materialized inside their most secure facility without triggering a single alarm. They reached the maintenance section and paused outside the sealed door. Kroenke activated the internal scanner, and the image that appeared on his portable display made him freeze. The human female lay curled on her side in the center of the warm chamber, her chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm of deep sleep. Her clothing was strange, not matching anything they had observed on the planet below. But that wasn't what stopped the security team in their tracks. Nestled against the sleeping human were three small forms, their fur a mottled pattern of gray and brown. Cubs. Xantharian cubs that should have been safely contained in the ship's nursery section. "How did they get out?" whispered Subcommander Thresh, his voice barely audible. Kroenke stared at the scanner display, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The three cubs belonged to different families aboard the station. He recognized little Piptel, whose parents were botanists in the hydroponics bay. There was Mordak, child of a navigation officer, and Shanaira, daughter of the chief engineer. All three should have been secured in the nursery section under the care of the automated systems and the nursery attendants. The nursery was locked down tighter than the ship's armory, with multiple checkpoints and biometric scanners. No one could simply walk in and take cubs, especially not an alien intruder. "Sir," Thresh whispered, "should we move in?" Kroenke held up a hand for silence. The cubs were sleeping peacefully against the human female, their small bodies rising and falling with her breathing. In all his years of service, he had never seen Xantharian young so calm around an unknown species. Cubs were naturally fearful of strangers, even other Xantharians they didn't know. "Run a full scan," he ordered Zalera through his communicator. "I want to know everything about this human. Genetic markers, atmospheric composition around her, energy readings, everything." Zalera's voice crackled back through the comms. "Sir, the readings are extraordinary. Her cellular structure shows signs of recent trauma and healing. There are traces of unknown compounds in her bloodstream, and her neural activity is unlike anything in our databases. But, sir, there's something else." "What?" "The cub's stress hormones have dropped to levels we've never recorded before. According to these readings, they're more relaxed than they've ever been since hatching." Kroenke exchanged glances with his team. Xantharian cubs were notorious for their high anxiety levels in their first year of life. The species' evolutionary history on a predator-filled homeworld had ingrained deep survival instincts that made the young constantly vigilant and easily startled. Through the scanner, they watched as little Piptel shifted in her sleep, nuzzling closer to the human's warm body. The human's arm moved unconsciously to encompass the cub more securely, a protective gesture that seemed completely natural. "This is impossible," Subcommander Thresh muttered. "How does she know to do that?" "Sir," came Zalera's voice again, "I'm detecting some kind of biofield emanating from the human. It's very faint, but it seems to have a calming effect on nearby life forms. The atmospheric processors in that section are running at optimal efficiency, and even the bacterial cultures in the environmental tanks are showing increased stability." Kroenke made a decision that would later change the course of first contact protocols throughout the galaxy. Instead of moving in with a security team, he ordered them to stand down and observe. Hours passed. The human continued to sleep, and the cubs remained curled against her. Through the ship's internal communications, word spread of the strange discovery. Scientists from every department requested permission to observe, but Kroenke maintained a strict perimeter. It was Dr. Veltar, the ship's xenobiologist, who first suggested what everyone was thinking but afraid to voice. "Commander," she said, arriving at the observation post with her scanning equipment, "I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. This human appears to have formed an instinctive care bond with our young." "That's absurd," Kroenke replied. "Different species don't form care bonds. It's biologically impossible." Dr. Veltar activated her advanced scanners and frowned at the readings. "Yet here it is happening. Look at these neurochemical markers. The human's brain is producing elevated levels of oxytocin, prolactin, and dopamine. These are the same chemicals our species produces when caring for our young. But how did she even get here?" Thresh asked. And why aren't the cubs afraid? Dr. Veltar studied her data for several minutes before speaking. I have a theory, but it sounds incredible even to me. What if this human isn't from the planet below? What if she's from somewhere else entirely? Somewhere that required the evolution of powerful protective instincts toward young creatures. You're suggesting she's not native to this system? I'm suggesting she might be a refugee. Look at these cellular damage patterns. They're consistent with exposure to high-energy weapons, possibly plasma-based. And these trace compounds in her blood, they're not from any known substance in this sector. As if summoned by their conversation, the human began to stir. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing irises of an unusual blue-green color that seemed to shift in the artificial light. She looked around the chamber with the calm assessment of someone accustomed to waking in unfamiliar places. The cubs sensed her movement and stirred as well, making soft chirping sounds of contentment. Instead of being alarmed by their alien appearance, the human smiled and made gentle, soothing sounds, her hand stroking their soft fur. "Hello, little ones," she whispered in a voice so soft it barely registered on the sensors. "Did you sleep well?" The cubs responded by pressing closer to her, their natural purring mechanism activating for the first time since their hatching. Through the ship's speakers, the security team could hear the gentle rumbling sound, something their own parents had rarely been able to elicit. The human slowly sat up, careful not to disturb her small companions. She looked directly at the hidden scanner, as if she could see through the walls to where the Xantharians watched. "I know you're there," she said simply. "I'm sorry for the intrusion, but I was dying, and your cubs called to me." The silence that followed the human's words stretched across the ship's communication channels. Every department head, every scientist, every crew member who had been monitoring the situation felt the weight of that simple statement. She was dying, and their cubs had called to her. Commander Vextal's voice crackled through Kroan-AK's communicator. "How does she know our language?" Dr. Veltar was frantically adjusting her equipment. "She's not speaking our language. The universal translator is working, but the neural patterns suggest she's communicating in some form of empathic projection. She's making herself understood through intent rather than words." Kroan-AK made another decision that would reshape everything they thought they knew about interspecies relations. He activated the chamber's communication system. "Human," he said, his deep voice echoing in the maintenance section. "I am Security Chief Kroan-AK of the Xantharian research vessel Dawn's Edge. You have illegally boarded our ship and removed cubs from our nursery. Explain yourself." The human looked up at the hidden speakers, and there was something ancient and tired in her eyes. She stood slowly, keeping one hand on little Piptel's back as the cub nestled against her leg. "My name is Sarah Chun," she said. "Former Lieutenant Colonel, Earth Defense Force, 15th Colonial Protection Division. My ship was destroyed 3 days ago by Vorthack raiders. I've been drifting in an escape pod, watching my life support fail, when I heard them." "Heard what?" Dr. Veltar interjected, unable to contain her scientific curiosity. Sarah knelt down as little Mordak climbed into her lap, his small claws gripping her strange clothing. Their distress. They were crying out, not vocally but emotionally. I've never heard anything like it. Such profound loneliness, such fear. It cut right through my ship's hull and into my heart. Impossible qu'on gold. Our cubs are well cared for. They receive optimal nutrition, climate control, educational stimulation, and regular health monitoring. Sarah's laugh was soft and sad, but not love. Not the touch and warmth and constant presence they needed. They were dying inside, just as surely as I was dying in space. She stroked Shamare's tiny head as the third cub pressed against her other side. "Where I come from, we learned something a long time ago. Young creatures need more than just physical care to survive. They need emotional connection, constant reassurance, the knowledge that someone will always be there to protect them." Dr. Veltar was taking readings as fast as her equipment would allow. "The cub's cortisol levels are dropping by the minute. Their neural development patterns are showing acceleration in areas we've never seen active before. How did you get aboard our ship? Kung demanded, though his tone was less aggressive now. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if accessing a painful memory. I don't fully understand it myself. My escape pod was failing, systems going dark one by one. I could feel my oxygen running out, my body shutting down. But I could hear them calling, these tiny voices in the darkness, crying for help. She opened her eyes and looked directly at the scanner again. I think my desperation somehow resonated with theirs. I reached out, wanting more than anything to help them, to comfort them, and suddenly I was here. Teleportation is scientifically impossible, Vextal's voice declared through the speakers. So, is a human understanding the emotional needs of Xantharian cubs? Sarah replied. But here we are. Dr. Veltar stepped forward, her voice filled with wonder. Commander, I'm reading quantum fluctuations around the human. Trace evidence of dimensional folding. What if extreme emotional distress, combined with her species' protective instincts, somehow allowed her to transcend normal space-time barriers? You're suggesting she teleported through sheer willpower? Crowan AK asked. I'm suggesting that humans might possess latent psychic abilities that activate under extreme duress, particularly when it involves protecting or caring for young creatures. Through the scanner, they watched as Sarah began humming softly, a melodic sound that made all three cubs purr louder. She was unconsciously rocking slightly, a motion that seemed to soothe both herself and her small companions. In human culture, she explained without being asked, we have something called maternal instinct. It doesn't require biological relation. It's an overwhelming drive to protect and nurture any young creature in distress. Most humans possess it to some degree. Zalera's excited voice came through the comm system. Commanders, I've been analyzing our nursery logs. The cubs she's holding have been showing signs of failure to thrive for weeks. Their growth rates were below normal, their neural development was stunted, and they refused to bond with the automated care systems. But that's impossible, Vextal protested. Our nursery technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Advanced, yes, Sarah said softly. But technology can't replace the presence of someone who genuinely cares about their well-being. These little ones were starving for emotional connection. As if to prove her point, Piptel looked up at Sarah and made a soft cooing sound. Sarah smiled and touched her nose gently to the cub's snout, a gesture so natural it seemed like she had been caring for Xantharian young her entire life. Dr. Veltar scanners began registering something extraordinary. Commanders, the human's presence is affecting more than just the cubs. Her biofield is strengthening, and it's beginning to resonate through the ship's systems. Environmental efficiency is up 12%. Bacterial cultures are thriving. Even the hydroponic gardens are showing increased growth rates. It's as if her caring instinct is somehow improving everything around her, Zalera added in wonder. Crowan K found himself facing a dilemma unlike any in his military career. Protocol demanded he arrest the intruder and return the cubs to the nursery. But every piece of evidence suggested that doing so would harm both the human and the cubs in ways they were only beginning to understand. Sarah Chun, he said finally, his voice carrying a weight of decision. We need to understand what's happening here. Will you cooperate with our research? Sarah looked down at the three cubs who had now settled completely in her lap, their tiny forms radiating contentment. Will you let me stay with them? They need someone who can love them properly. The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Xantharians thought they knew about child care, about their own species, and about the strange, impossible human who had appeared among them like an answer to prayers they hadn't known how to voice. The debate that followed Sarah's request lasted for hours and involved every senior officer aboard the Dawn's Edge. While they argued via secure channels, Sarah remained in the maintenance section with the three cubs, seemingly content to wait for their decision. Dr. Veltar had set up a mobile research station outside the chamber, her instruments recording every aspect of the unprecedented situation. The data was staggering. Not only were the cubs showing remarkable improvement in all health metrics, but their cognitive development was accelerating at rates that challenged everything Xantharian science understood about their own species. "She's teaching them," Dr. Veltar reported to the assembled officers. "Watch this." On the main view screen, they observed Sarah sitting cross-legged on the floor, showing little Piptel how to manipulate a piece of maintenance equipment she had found. The cub's natural dexterity was being guided and encouraged in ways that the automated nursery systems had never attempted. "Our educational protocols don't begin until cubs reach 6 months of age," Dr. Veltar explained. Yet under her guidance, they're demonstrating problem-solving abilities we wouldn't expect for another 4 months. But it was Chief Engineer Core then who made the observation that changed everything. "Look at how she touches them," he said, his gruff voice unusually quiet. "Constant physical contact, gentle corrections, immediate comfort when they show distress. When was the last time any of us provided that kind of attention to our young?" The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. Xantharian culture had evolved to be efficient and logical. Cubs were produced when needed, cared for by automated systems designed for optimal growth, and integrated into adult society as soon as they demonstrated sufficient competence. Physical affection was rare. Emotional bonding was considered a weakness that interfered with logical decision-making. Yet here was proof that their methods might be fundamentally flawed. Commander Vextal finally broke the silence. "The parents want to see their cubs. Mordak's father is demanding immediate return of his offspring." "Sir," Dr. Veltar interjected quickly, "separation at this point could be traumatic for both the cubs and the human. Her bio readings show that she's become emotionally attached to them. Forced separation might trigger psychological damage in all parties involved." Through the scanner, they watched as Sarah began what appeared to be a game with the cubs. She would hide her face behind her hands, then reveal it suddenly, while making an exaggerated expression. The cubs responded with delighted chirping sounds, a vocalization that none of the crew members had heard before. "What is she doing?" Zilara asked. "It's called peekaboo." Sarah's voice came through the speakers. She had obviously overheard their conversations. "It's a simple game that teaches object permanence and trust. When I disappear behind my hands, they learn that I still exist even when they can't see me. When I reappear, they're reassured that I haven't abandoned them." "Abandoned them?" Kronake repeated. "Why would they fear abandonment?" Sarah's expression grew sad as she pulled all 3 cubs into a gentle embrace. "Because that's exactly what happened to them. You created them, provided for their physical needs, then left them alone with machines. No matter how advanced your technology, it can't replace the emotional security of knowing someone loves you unconditionally." The words hit the Xantharian crew like a physical blow. Many of them remembered their own cubhood, the long hours in sterile nursery chambers, the efficiency of automated care systems, the absence of warmth and comfort beyond basic survival needs. "Our way produces strong, independent adults," Vextal said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Does it?" Sarah asked gently. "When was the last time any of you felt truly happy? When did you last experience the joy these cubs are showing right now?" Dr. Veltar checked her instruments again and made a startling discovery. "Commanders, I'm detecting similar neurochemical responses in our crew members who are observing this interaction. Oxytocin and dopamine levels are rising among our people as well." It was true. Throughout the ship, Xantharians who were watching the feeds found themselves experiencing unfamiliar feelings. There was something deeply satisfying about seeing the cubs so content, so obviously thriving under Sarah's care. It awakened instincts they had been trained to suppress, emotional responses their culture had deemed inefficient. The breakthrough came when little Shanaire, the engineer's daughter, began to fuss and cry. The cubs had been with Sarah for nearly a day now, and their natural feeding time was approaching. In the nursery, automated dispensers would provide perfectly calibrated nutrition supplements. But Sarah's response was entirely different. She lifted Shanaire gently, cradling the cub against her chest and making soft, soothing sounds. She began to rock slowly, her voice humming a melody that seemed to calm not only Sean IRA, but the other cubs as well. She doesn't have the proper nutrition supplements, Chief Medical Officer Zexnell observed. The cub will become distressed. But instead of distress, something remarkable happened. Sarah's presence alone seemed to comfort Sean IRA enough that the cub settled into a peaceful state, no longer demanding immediate feeding. Impossible, Dr. Veltar whispered. She's somehow regulating the cub's stress hormones through physical contact alone. The need for nutrition is being delayed by the security of emotional bonding. The implications were staggering. Xantharian feeding schedules were based on the assumption that cubs would become increasingly agitated until their nutritional needs were met. No one had considered that emotional comfort might extend the time between feedings, or that stress reduction could improve overall health outcomes. Chief Engineer Corthen, Sean IRA's father, finally spoke the words that many were thinking. I want to meet her. I want to understand what she's doing that we never learned to do. Crowan AK looked around at his senior staff. Despite his military training, despite his instinct to follow protocol and remove the intruder, he could see the profound impact this situation was having on his crew. They were questioning everything they thought they knew about their own species, their own culture, their own capacity for emotional connection. Very well, he said finally. We'll arrange control contact, but I want full monitoring and the ability to intervene if necessary. What none of them could have predicted was that they were about to discover something that would fundamentally change not only their understanding of child rearing, but their entire approach to what it meant to be a sentient species capable of love. The first meeting between Sarah and the cub's parents took place in the ship's main conference room, with Dr. Veltar monitoring every biological and psychological marker she could measure. The three adult Xantharians approached cautiously, their natural armor plates rippling with nervous energy. Corthen, Share's father, was the first to speak. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to commanding respect, but there was an underlying uncertainty that everyone could hear. Human, he began, then stopped. Sarah, I want to understand what you have done with my offspring. Sarah sat in a specially configured chair that allowed the three cubs to remain close to her while still being visible to their parents. Her movements were slow and deliberate, designed not to startle the adult Xantharians who towered over her. I've simply loved them, she said quietly, the way all young creatures deserve to be loved. The simplicity of a statement seemed to confuse the Xantharian parents. Piptel's mother, Dr. Yalmara from the botany department, stepped forward with scientific curiosity overriding her parental concern. Define love in this context, she requested. What specific actions constitute this behavior pattern? Sarah smiled sadly. It's not a behavior pattern. It's not something you can program or schedule. Watch. She reached down and gently lifted little Piptel, who immediately snuggled against her neck with complete trust. Sarah's hand automatically moved to support the cub's back, her fingers stroking the soft fur in a rhythm that seemed to calm both of them. See how she relaxes? That's because she knows I'm here for her, not because I have to be, but because I want to be. She doesn't have to earn my attention or prove she's worthy of care. My presence isn't conditional on her behavior or performance. Dr. Yalmara's head tilted in confusion. But how do you establish behavioral parameters? How do you ensure proper development without structured feedback systems? You guide with love instead of rules, Sarah explained. She set Piptel down, and the cub immediately began exploring the conference room, but stayed within a small radius around Sarah. See? She feels secure enough to explore because she knows I'm here. She doesn't need barriers or containment systems because she trusts that I won't let her come harm. Mordak's father, Navigation Officer Reknan, observed this interaction with growing amazement. The cub shows no signs of territorial anxiety or exploration hesitation. These behaviors should not manifest for several more months. Because you've been teaching them to be afraid, Sarah said gently. Your automated systems respond to cubs with corrections, restrictions, and scheduled interactions. They learn that the world is full of rules and punishments. But if they learn that the world is full of love and guidance, they become confident instead of fearful. Dr. Veltar's instruments were recording unprecedented data. The cub's neural development is accelerating across all cognitive centers. Problem solving, emotional regulation, social bonding, even physical coordination. It's as if her presence is unlocking genetic potential we didn't know existed. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated the power of Sarah's approach. Little Shanaira, emboldened by her companion's confidence, toddled over to her father Korthan. The massive engineer looked down at his offspring with uncertainty, unsure how to respond to this unprecedented initiative. Shanaira raised her tiny arms in a gesture that Sarah had been teaching them, a request to be picked up. Korthan hesitated, looking to Sarah for guidance. "She wants you to hold her," Sarah explained. "Not because she needs something, but because she loves you and wants to be close to you." "I do not understand the distinction," Korthan admitted. Sarah stood and approached the large Syntherian carefully. "May I show you?" With his confused nod, Sarah demonstrated how to lift Shanaira gently, how to support her small body, how to respond to her natural desire for physical contact. As Korthan held his daughter for the first time in her life without clinical necessity, something profound shifted in his expression. Shanaira made soft, contented sounds and settled against her father's chest. For the first time, Korthan experienced the rush of neurochemicals that Sarah's species took for granted. The powerful bonding response that evolution had designed to ensure the survival of young creatures. "I feel strange," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "That's love," Sarah said simply. "That's what you've been missing." Dr. Veltar's readings went wild. "Commander, I'm detecting massive neurochemical changes in Korthan. Oxytocin levels are spiking beyond our measurement capabilities. His stress hormones are dropping to levels we've never recorded in adult Syntherians." The transformation wasn't limited to Korthan. As each parent learned to interact with their cubs in this new way, guided by Sarah's patient instruction, the entire dynamic aboard the ship began to change. Word spread quickly through the crew as parents who had never truly connected with their offspring suddenly discovered the joy of unconditional love. But the most remarkable change came in the cubs themselves. Within days, they were demonstrating capabilities that Syntherian science insisted were impossible at their age. They began attempting to communicate in more complex ways, showing problem-solving skills that wouldn't normally emerge for months, displaying emotional intelligence that some adults never achieved. Commander Vextal called an emergency meeting of all department heads 3 days after the first parent-cub interactions. "We need to discuss the implications of what we're witnessing," he announced. "Our entire understanding of child development, of our own species' emotional capacity, has been challenged by this human." Chief Medical Officer Zexnell presented his findings. Crew-wide psychological evaluations showed dramatic improvements in mood, job satisfaction, and interpersonal relationships. It's as if learning to truly connect with our cubs has awakened emotional capabilities we didn't know we possessed. The efficiency reports are remarkable as well, added Chief Engineer Korthan, who had become one of Sarah's most devoted students. When crew members are emotionally satisfied, their work quality improves significantly. Contrary to our cultural assumptions, emotional fulfillment enhances logical thinking rather than impairing it. Crowan AK found himself in the unprecedented position of recommending a complete revision of Syntherian cultural practices based on the teachings of an alien refugee. "I propose we establish a new position aboard this ship," he announced. "Sarah Chun will become our first child development specialist, with the authority to implement human bonding practices in our nursery systems. And beyond that, Dr. Veltar added excitedly, we need to consider the broader implications. If humans possess these innate nurturing abilities that can transcend species barriers, what other capabilities might they have? What can we learn from a species that has evolved such powerful protective instincts? Sarah, who had been quietly observing the meeting while the three cubs played contentedly at her feet, finally spoke. "You're thinking too small," she said with a smile. "This isn't about what humans can teach you. This is about what happens when any species chooses love over efficiency, connection over isolation, emotional courage over logical safety." She looked around the room at the assembled Xantharians, many of whom were now regularly spending time with their cubs in ways that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. "You always had this capacity. You just needed permission to use it." As the Dawn's Edge continued its orbit around the distant planet, its mission transformed from mere observation to something far more profound. They were no longer just studying human civilization from a distance. They were learning what it truly meant to be alive, to love, to nurture the next generation with the kind of care that created not just survivors, but thriving, emotionally intelligent beings capable of changing the galaxy itself. And in the maintenance section that had become a nursery filled with laughter and love, three cubs who had been saved by an impossible human continue to grow in ways that would reshape the future of both their species, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries come not from advanced technology or scientific breakthroughs, but from the simple act of caring for those who need it most.